Sabira Merchant is our own Professor Higgins. She's an actress, corporate finesse and pageant trainer. She has been associated with Miss India pageant for over 25 years and has trained the likes of Priyanka Chopra, Lara Datta, Yukta Mukhi, Diana Hayden, Aryan Vaid, Raghu Mukherjee for international beauty pageants. Having been bestowed with various awards and acclaim, some of her most celebrated achievements include an award by the All India Critics Association and being voted one of the top 10 female theatre personalities in India. She also teaches communication skills, corporate grooming, body language, public speaking, and confidence building to make you into charming personalities. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Sabira Merchant to charm you.
A short introduction to Dr. Shashi Tharoor, eminent statesman and politician, distinguished teacher and award-winning author in myriad fields, man of noble spirit, having served as a peacekeeper, refugee worker, and administrator at the highest levels, serving as Under Secretary General of the United Nations, Dr. Shashi Tharoor really needs no introduction. He is a pioneer in using the social media as an instrument of political interaction. If I really had to get down to reading his accomplishments and his knowledge of the English language, there would be no time left for interaction. He currently has 4.2 million followers.
7.8.
Oh, my goodness me, that's amazing. Thank you for that.
You have an out-of-date CV, I can see.
Well, prior to embarking on his political career, Dr. Tharoor served on the board of the overseers of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy and was also appointed as international advisor of the Red Cross in Geneva. He's the father of twin sons Ishan and Kanishk and of Shiv. Currently, he represents Thiruvananthapuram constituency as MP for the Congress Party in the Lok Sabha and chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs.
No longer, well, it's information technology now.
Information and technology, right. Thank you for that correction. He was awarded by the Sahitya Academy for his book, An Era of Darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Dr. Shashi Tharoor.
Thank you, good to be with you. And I must say that I have a long and friendly association with Rotary International. When I left the United Nations, they very graciously made me a lifetime honorary member. So here I am, I'm one of you.
Oh, wonderful. I didn't realize that. You know, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that information. I'm so happy. Fellow Rotarian, as I might call you. Right, so let me just pose my first question to you. We just have 8 very simple questions, or at least they will be simple to you. They are not to me. They seem pretty complicated to me. But the first question here goes, is Rotary with its 35,000 plus clubs and 1.2 million members is a unique organization of its kind. Each day, our members pour their passion, integrity, and intelligence into projects that have a lasting impact, putting in approximately 16 million volunteer hours each year. For over a century now, Rotarians have bridged cultures and connected continents to champion peace, fight illiteracy and poverty, promote clean water and sanitation, and fight disease. We also work in concert with many bilateral and multilateral organizations. Now, sir, what would be your advice to develop our engagement further?
Well, first of all, I think it's one must pay tribute to Rotary for all that is already done. You've given us a quick summary in your question. I would go even further and say that in many ways, what Rotary has accomplished in the areas, for example, in India of polio eradication, in many parts of the world in disease prevention and treatment, in the fields of maternal and child health, water and sanitation, literacy, all sorts of fields. And the success of Rotary in raising, I gather, literally over $1 billion for various good causes. And to do so, honestly, so unsung and underappreciated. I was looking through the list of Nobel laureates the other day, and I'm surprised that Rotary has never been given the Nobel Prize for what it very, very richly deserves to have done for the world. So this contribution is so outstanding that first of all, one needs to pay tribute to it, but then second, one has to say it's almost presumptuous for anybody else to advise Rotary to do anything more than what you're already doing. I really think that the basic motto that most Rotary clubs recite with pride, service before self, is an amazing credo to follow. And I think the efforts being made by Rotarians, organized in clubs and districts and governorships and national and international levels around the world, in so many good causes, have transformed lives, whether it's the lives of individual patients who've been assisted for life-saving operations, or whether it's actually the work they've done on a national scale. And I come back again to polio because it was such an extraordinary accomplishment in a country like India, where so many people, right up to my generation, suffered from polio, and to see it completely gone. That kind of activity takes a network, takes funding, takes commitment, and takes a terrific amount of willingness to strive on till the results are accomplished. All of this, I think, is more than enough. So keep doing what you're doing is my first piece of advice. I was very struck when I was given a Rotary Award some years ago in India by a group of Rotary clubs in Calcutta. They talked about the four-way test, which of course goes back half a century or more in the Rotary spirit. That if all the things we think, say, or do cover satisfactory answers to four questions: is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? That is the litmus test to be applied. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that is absolutely terrific. And those principles, which I believe Rotarians are committed to living up to everywhere, those principles, married together with a tremendous international fellowship, a willingness to exchange experiences and to learn from each other, all of this have made you such a strong organization that you should just keep going at it. You've recently, in recent years, extended yourselves much more to young people, Rotaract and other groups for youth. That's been terrific, because I think it's wonderful seeing young students, college students, and people just out of college already imbibing that spirit of service that Rotary is so well respected for and well known for. And I think that kind of cooperation at a young age will be precisely what will see them through an adulthood of service and giving. So really no new ideas to offer, except to recognize what you've already done so very well, and to say to all of you, please continue with that. Please continue maintaining the emphasis on high ethical standards in everything people do, because unfortunately our world, and we know this so well in our country, Sabira, our world has become so corrupted and devoid or denuded of human values, of the loftier values that we're all taught to aspire to, but which we sadly disregard in daily life and daily work. So maintaining high ethical standards, respecting the worthiness of all useful occupations, and treating people with respect and dignity. These are things that non-Rotarians should also do, and Rotarians could set an example of in their daily lives. So really, that's all I would have to say. More of the same, emphasis on the right things, and Godspeed. May more success follow in your efforts.
Thank you. That's such a heartwarming reply. Thank you, Rotarians. Please make note of that. My next question to you is about world peace. World peace is the concept of an ideal state of happiness, freedom, and peace within and among all people and nations on earth. Various religious and secular organizations have the stated aim of achieving world peace through addressing human rights, technology, education, engineering, medicine, or diplomacy used as an end to all forms of fighting. The United Nations has been in the vanguard of this effort. Being an alumnus, so as to say, of the United Nations, what do you think has been its success rate?
Well, I think it's been better than many people give it credit for, Samira. And at the same time, it hasn't been perfect. I mean, the first and most obvious answer is, well, if there wasn't a UN, we might have had World War III, because don't forget the first 50 years of the century, the first 45 years of the century, the 20th century, were so appalling. They included 2 world wars, countless civil wars, mass displacement of millions of people in various countries, the horrors of the Holocaust and of Hiroshima. I mean, if you look at those 45 years that began the 20th century, you would think that humanity was just destined for self-destruction. And I think we are privileged that somehow in the midst of all of this carnage, there emerged a generation of statesmen and stateswomen who had the vision to say never again and to construct an institution like the United Nations to actually tackle it, to prevent the world from going to hell in the proverbial handbasket. And there was no World War III because, as some far-seeing statesmen rightly said, if we actually fight a World War III, then World War IV will have to be fought with slings and arrows because we would have completely destroyed everything else. Yes. And I think that that's something which the UN gets some credit for. The UN didn't prevent all wars and conflicts, and we know that from our own experience in the last 75 years. But I would say that many of the conflicts were either marginalized by being contained within smaller areas and zones, or at least ended periodically where they couldn't be resolved permanently. And at the same time, these conflicts were never allowed to ignite a superpower conflagration that would have consumed the entire world. So I don't want to pretend that world peace blissfully descended upon us because of the UN, since if you were in any of the many wars that were fought at this time, whether the Korea War, the Vietnam War, the Israel-Arab conflicts, of which there have been at least 3 significant ones, the Indo-Pakistan wars, of which there have been 3 or 4, the Tanzania-Uganda war, all the civil wars in Yugoslavia, Georgia, and Mozambique, you would say, well, what is this world peace? It's an illusion. But the truth is that all of these were limited. There was an immediate attempt made to solve them and to bring about peace. In many cases, peace is proven to be enduring. In some cases, it has often broken down, as with the Israel-Arab conflict, in that the peace of 65 broke down in 73, and then we've had other short, sharp wars in the region. But the fact is that at least some sort of temporary peaces have been brought about. And if I were to look at the other milestones in this period of 75 years, I think the UN's contribution to decolonization, the end of colonial oppression, the emergence of new states. You know, we went from 35 independent members of the United Nations back in 1945 to 193 today. And that suggests the onset of freedom in many places. Development is no longer just a theory. People's and their lives have changed so much. We saw it first immediately after World War II with the rebuilding of Europe and Japan, but now so many countries have emerged from dire poverty and even destruction, such as South Korea and other countries in Southeast Asia, Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam itself, are all now prosperous and flourishing countries. And I would say that that's been a good advertisement for the world. While we are no stranger, sadly, to disease, and we're now living with a pandemic, on the whole, the health of the world has improved. There's much more consciousness of women's rights, much more consciousness of racial injustice and the determination to oppose it. Apartheid will no longer be possible in this world. Environmentalism, which no one had even heard of before the 1960s, is now taken for granted as an issue all of us must be conscious of. And of course, there was this entire revolution of globalization, which sadly has also produced its own backlashes now. And there are backlashes we haven't fully resolved. Terrorism is one example of it. But at the same time, look at the way the world has changed in these 75 years. Technological change, the information and communications revolution. Computers were a rarity when man first sent a rocket to the moon. Now we have more computing power than their entire Houston lab had in our hands in a mobile phone. Satellite TV brings us events from half a world away directly into our living rooms. The internet enables us to connect with friends literally instantly, even if they're thousands and thousands of miles away. I remember the days when I was young enough to be corresponding with pen pals abroad, where you stuck a stamp on an aerogram and waited 3 weeks or 4 weeks for a reply. Those days have gone, been transformed. Now we are hearing about artificial intelligence, dramatic medical advances because of technology, diseases being responded to with new methods. Space exploration is opening up new vistas and new worlds for us. I remember again as a child, it was a stuff of science fiction fantasy to imagine a video call where we could see the person we were speaking to. Today, not only are you and I doing this today from hundreds of miles away from each other, but we can do it on our mobile phones, reach our loved ones. When I first went to America as a graduate student, it was $12 a minute to call my parents, and believe me, I couldn't afford that. So they heard from me by mail, by snail mail. Today, it's a free WhatsApp call if you want to see your loved one and speak to them. So all of these things have been so wonderfully transformative that I want us to be aware that peace in the broader sense of the enhancement of possibilities in human beings' lives, that peace has dawned and is flourishing.
Thank you so much for that. That's true. You know, I had a card come the other day to wish me Merry Christmas, and I was so excited just looking at that card with that stamp in place. Made me think of the old days when we used to, as you said, snail mail was the order of the day.
Right.
So, yes. The next question is a slightly different one. An Odyssey is a long and eventful journey. The Trojan War took 10 years, and Odysseus' journey home took another 10 as he took the long way, 20 years in all. Since 1945, humankind has been on the road towards peace for 75 years. What would you say are some of the milestones in this journey?
Interesting question. I was glad you're not going to quiz me on the Odyssey. I know it's about the wonderful Greek hero Odysseus, who, the king of Ithaca, who journeyed home after the Trojan War, and Homer wrote this wonderful, wonderful epic poem. But yes, his journey home and our journey since 1945, I wouldn't say it's the same thing. I mentioned to you that I was looking at the Nobel Peace Prizes the other day, and I think those would be a good signpost for the answer to the question as to what the major milestones have been in the journeys for peace. Because if you look at who's won the Nobel Peace Prize since 1945 and for what, I think you get a good sense of what the milestones are. And they seem to be, for example, a lot of prizes for ending conflicts, as well as for peace efforts and disarmament in general. And there have been peace prizes for ending the wars in Vietnam, the Suez Crisis, the war in Ireland, civil war in Colombia, one in Guatemala. There have been prizes for UN peacekeeping, for the European Union, and for individuals like former Finnish President Martti Ahtisaari, former US President Barack Obama, the Swedish right-hand diplomat Alva Myrdal, and so on. So peace in the literal sense of stopping people shooting each other has been achieved, and that's a major set of milestones. Then there have been Nobel Prizes given for trying to end conflicts. And those include the conflicts in the Middle East, Ethiopia, Eritrea, where the prize in some ways may seem premature, Samira, because the conflicts have either resumed very quickly, as in the case of Ethiopia, Eritrea. A year after the Nobel Prize, the same president who won the Nobel is busy going to war with the country when he made peace with. Or as in the Middle East, it keeps cropping up. Then there have been prizes for finding peaceful solutions to injustices. And that's something we should never forget in talking about peace. South African apartheid, for example, 2 or 3 Nobel Prizes for that. Argentina and Guatemala's civil rights violations of the rights of indigenous people, Gandhian peace efforts there. Burmese military rule when Aung San Suu Kyi was a prisoner of conscience. Those are also milestones for peace. Then there have been prizes for opposing cruel means of warfare. Prizes in particular, a large number of prizes for opposing nuclear weapons, educating people about the dangers of nuclear weapons, trying to ban or restrict or outlaw nuclear weapons. Same with chemical weapons. A prize for opposing landmines. An interesting prize for trying to ban sexual violence in war. So all of those acts of cruelty are being consciously opposed and recognized and rewarded. Then ordinary individuals and agencies that are making efforts to alleviate suffering. Mother Teresa is a great example. Médecins Sans Frontières, the Doctors Without Borders. The World Food Programme, Feeding the Hungry. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, which I had the privilege to serve. And we were all given a copy of the certificate and told, you know, you're all 256th Nobel laureate, which is a wonderful thing to hear. Then prizes for the promotion of rights of women and children. I mentioned that as a major accomplishment when I talked about women, and there have been many prizes for women's activities, but also for children. UNICEF, Malala Yousafzai and her campaign for education for girls. Vital things like that. Now there are prizes for the environment, for defending the environment. Wangari Maathai, Al Gore, people like that have got it. Greta Thunberg, I'm sure, will be a name we'll all be conjuring with in years to come. Prizes, of course, for the Green Revolution, Norman Borlaug, who by inventing new techniques of agriculture and new kinds of seeds has ended poverty and hunger in many parts of the world. And what's striking is, you know, when we think about peace, and you know, I often say, for example, I'm like everybody else in politics, I attack terrorism all the time, but I also add, don't forget the daily terror of hunger, poverty, and disease. That's what many people experience. Their lives are not only ending because of bombs and weapons. And then, of course, the efforts for prisoners of conscience. The young man in China who since died, who was given a Nobel Prize. Amnesty International's been given a Nobel Prize. There have been all these milestones that I think we can proudly point to. Just looking at the Nobel Peace Prizes are a yardstick for what the world has seen and recognized as part of the major effort to recognize the journey towards peace, the Odyssey that we are all embarked upon at this time.
Yes, right. Thank you so much for that answer. The series Star Trek labels space as the final frontier. The theme for this session is peace, the first frontier. With apologies to Jane Austen, while peace may well be Elizabethan, there are a lot of Darcys around with prejudice. How distant is peace? What should humankind be doing differently?
Well, I think that's a very good question, to which the answer is we should be raising consciousness and educating people much more. And I don't just mean education in the formal sense. I mean everything that people do and think about in their daily lives ought to be to focus on what unites us, not what divides us, to focus not on people's differences from us on the basis of religion or language or ethnicity or color of skin or nationality, but rather on our common humanity. And to my mind, Rotary, because it is a universal organization, is very well positioned to advance that. I know you do your best in all sorts of ways already to try and promote, for example, greater understanding across cultures, training some of your young people to prevent and mediate conflicts and all of that. That's fine. But I don't think it's enough. I think that in the daily lives of people, we have actually nonviolence being threatened even by attitudes, by bigoted statements, by the expression and reinforcement of prejudice, by nasty stories on WhatsApp University, which often is the course of education most adults get, and indeed some young people get. So I think it seems extremely important for us, Sabira, that if we can do everything in our power to educate constructively, to raise the consciousness of people in ways that will bring us together and not drive us apart, only then can we achieve pride in peace rather than prejudice, as you rightly said, as your question rightly said.
Thank you so much for that excellent discussion and interaction, and for that great response. On behalf of the Rotary Club, we appreciate that graciousness, that friendliness of manner, which has given so much charm to every moment of your presence with us. This will leave a deep imprint upon our memories, which will remain with us for a long, long time. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Sabira.